right after practice, the GM and the head coach pulled me to the side, and it was like, "We just traded you to the Titans." And I was like, "Are you for real?" He said, yeah. He said, "I thought you'd be happy." This is Howie. He's saying, "I thought you'd be happy." I just got here. That's what I told him.
Yeah.
I just got here.
Kind of a
Literally,
weird question to ask you.
yeah. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I just got here. He's like, "Yeah, man, but I knew it was for home for you, so we just wanted to pull the trigger on it." I was like, "All right, okay, cool." So literally that same day, they fly me to Nashville. And I almost hesitated. Like I almost wanted to call my mom, "Hey, come pick me from the airport," but it wasn't that type of, coming back home type of thing. I was like, "Hey, come pick me up from the airport." But it's like,
Welcome to the Raw Facts podcast. I'm your host and producer, Ben Arthur, joined by New Orleans Saints defensive back Ugo Amadi, a guy I've known for a minute. Ugo, how you doing, man? It's good to see you.
man, it's good to see you too, man. I appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem. And first off, I just have to say congratulations because you're coming off a Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. What does it feel like to be a Super Bowl champion as a kid growing up? I mean, everyone who maybe plays football wants to kind of be a champion. Now that you are a champion, what does that maybe feel like?
Man, first off, man, I appreciate it, man. But the feeling just unreal, man. You're dealing with the 1%. There's been players who played and they end up coaching NFL that didn't make it to the playoffs, let alone make it to the Super Bowl. So like, I feel like I'm just a part of that 1%, man. And just God is good.
What was the best part of the festivities? I saw some pictures and videos online, I think from you and obviously some of the Chiefs players as well. But for you personally, what do you think was kind of like the best part of, all that?
I think the best part was definitely the parade. I mean, the whole city shut down. I mean, kids who had class that day, school was shut down. The whole downtown was shut down. Literally, if you had a job you had to get to, and you lived downtown, you weren't making. I'm so serious. Like I live downtown, so I almost didn't make it to the parade because they shut the downtown down. Like literally, there was no way in, no way out. So like the parade was just like 6 miles long, man. I was on foot for about 5 miles. Literally, I was on foot walking with those fans, and it was cold out there too. It was cold, but it was dope though. It was for sure dope.
What does that maybe say about, I mean, obviously when a team wins a Super Bowl, the fans are going to show out, but I know Chiefs Kingdom, like that fandom is kind of a whole different level. And you've seen great fans like with the Seahawks at the 12s, but what are kind of like Chiefs fans like from your experience?
I mean, the Chiefs fans, they die and breed, Kansas City, the football team, man. Like they're wearing the jerseys anywhere you go. I mean, they really are all about like the team. Like their tailgate's unreal. Like they're out there 2-3 hours before the game, maybe even earlier than that, but I'm like the games, the crowd, like that stadium was like, it's pretty unreal.
And Ugo, I got to ask this since Patrick Mahomes is like the best player in the NFL, right? He's the face of the league. In practices, was there anything that maybe stood out, like a play that you kind of think of that maybe like encapsulates who he is, who we know him to be? Was there any like thing crazy he did at the Chiefs facility during practice that you can kind of recall?
I mean, he did a lot of crazy stuff, but I feel like mostly like Pat really had fun. Like if all the quarterbacks I've been around, like he really had fun. Like he would play games like before practice and stuff with the other quarterbacks and stuff like that. Like the guy really had fun. Like he really had fun with this game, and he was just himself. And then, like this was one time in practice where Kelsey just ran an over out. And, like before Kelsey even turned his head around, the ball was just right there on his face mask, and he just caught it. I was like, wow, like their connection is just unreal.
For sure. And Ugo, to kind of get to your story a bit, you're from Nashville. Obviously, that's where I live, and Nashville. I know Nashville has kind of changed a lot over the years, and I think we've had a conversation in the past about that. But what was your experience, your childhood like in Nashville, playing football and kind of coming up in this city?
Man, my experience coming up in this city, it was different. We had a lot of guys, that were talented, especially around my age group, So I was just in the mix. We had Jalen Ramsey, we had Derek Barnett, we had Rashawn Golden, we had Chris Rowland. We had a lot of guys that we all played together, but it was just so jumbled up, So until we got to high school, that's when stuff started separating, and everybody else, you started seeing everybody else started shining. You know, we had Ty Chandler too, so
Yeah.
everybody just started separating. You know, that's where everybody started shining and everything. But at that time, we didn't have much NFL guys, you know, giving back to us or mentoring us, stuff like that, that were from the city. And I feel like as we grew up and we got to where we're at now, I feel like we're paying those dudes back, because we saw that didn't happen, so we wanted to change the narrative for the next generation to come.
Growing up in a Nigerian household,
Mhm.
I know when I was covering the Seahawks, I know we had a conversation about this several years ago, but I guess maybe how did that shape your childhood and maybe kind of make it unique, if that kind of makes sense?
Yeah, growing up in a Nigerian household, it wasn't easy. A lot of discipline going on around, a lot of attention to detail, with the parents. School always comes first, sports come last. If anything, you got to, do right by your parents, listen, obey, and all that stuff. And it was just very strict. It's just very strict when you coming from culture. Coming from culture, you just have a strict rules you got to abide by. Girls can't do this, men can't do this. Stuff like that. And our parents didn't really care much for sports. They just want to make sure your academics is where it's at because how they were groomed in Africa, that's how it was for them. So they wanted to implement that same blueprint on us.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. I don't know if you remember, but my family is from Ghana, and
Yeah.
so yeah. So I kind of had that like same experience in terms of discipline and school is very important and whatnot. But Ugo, kind of going off of that, what do you think? Because of your background growing up in a Nigerian household, what lessons or principles did that kind of give you in terms of it manifesting to this day in terms of how you carry yourself? Was there anything kind of like you're grateful for because of that experience that has kind of helped you today in terms of how you carry yourself?
Man, I'm very grateful. Most importantly, how I was groomed, me being the youngest child, I was able to learn from my older siblings on what to do and what not to do. And me being the youngest child, my older siblings taught me stuff at their age that I'm doing at a younger age. And that
Mhm.
just gave me a step ahead of everybody. Like I'll never forget my older brother signed me in for baseball. I'm playing with I'm 6 years old playing with the 7, 8 year olds. So all throughout baseball, I'm playing with the two age groups up every time.
Mm.
And then when finally I got to my age group, it was just a cakewalk. And I really applaud them for that. And my parents, they were just so on me, just like staying out of trouble, make sure you don't do what your older brothers are doing. And as I grew up, I started doing that, and everything it started falling into place.
Was it a natural thing for you to play football? Because I know being from a Ghanaian household myself, like soccer is
Yeah.
everything like on the continent, right? So I'm curious. It's kind of a two-part question. Did you play soccer at all? And secondly, like how did you end up kind of getting into football in the first place?
Well, ironically, it's being African. I never played soccer ever. No type of sport for fun. I just never played soccer. But getting into football, I was 6 years old. I remember once again my brother signed me up for Little League football, and I never got like I told him like I want to be like Hines Ward. That's when he was with the Steelers. He said with the shivers on his wrist and all that. I was like, okay, yeah, I want to be like Hines Ward. So that's when I got into football at 6 years old. And after that, it was just a wrap. After that, I played every year. After that, and kept it going.
When did you know you were good? Like you had it, like a chance to kind of go far?
When I knew I had it and a chance to go far, would probably be my junior year in high school. Like my junior year in high school, I was like, okay, because my sophomore year and freshman year, I didn't score no touchdowns on varsity. Come my junior year, I scored about 11 touchdowns. Like I was just separating myself whenever I had the ball in my hands, and I was like, okay, I had a chance. That's when I started working even harder. So I put in even more work in, and the senior year came, and that's when scholarships started rolling in even more and more attention. More fans come to the game in high school. So yeah, that's when I knew.
Were you like a running back or wide receiver? What position did you play?
I was playing quarterback, but all we ran on offense was Wildcat. So I was reading option the whole time. I was playing
Okay.
quarterback and corner. That's all.
Okay. That's what's up. I remember a story of you playing against DK Metcalf in high school at some point at a camp or something.
Yeah.
What exactly was that story? And I remember because I know DK was probably about the same size he is now back in high school. What do you maybe remember about playing against him?
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, me and DK, we had that one-on-one matchup against one another. Yeah, DK was still big as he is now. He was still big, but no, we did that one-on-one little rep. But I remember after that camp, I was gonna commit to Ole Miss. I was trying to tell him like, "Hey man, you need to come to Ole Miss." He's like, "But Ugo, I'm already silently committed there." You know what I'm saying? I was like, "Oh, okay, then we good. I don't know what I'm wasting my breath for." But yeah, that was dope though having him there. There's a lot of other guys there that was too. It's crazy when you go back and look at all the guys who were at that camp that are in the league right now. It's crazy.
Which camp was that in
This is the
particular?
rivals. This was the rivals camp in
Okay.
Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And like you go Ugo, you went from Nashville to Oregon. Like that's I mean, Oregon is obviously a known kind of college football power, but to kind of turn down SEC schools, because I know you had a number of SEC offers, was that kind of an easy choice for you to make? Like how did you come upon Oregon, like getting like far away from home and going all out to the West Coast?
Well, that wasn't even an easy choice. I don't even say that was a choice that was even that plan. That choice was just unexpected to everybody, even to myself. Because I
Right.
was committed at Ole Miss going into my senior year of high school, and I was going to graduate early at high school, which I still did. But by the time I graduated high school early, Ole Miss wanted to bring me in the summertime, and I told the coach like I don't want to do that. I want to sit at home from January till June, and enroll this so that fixed the person me graduating high school early.
Mm.
And that's when I opened up my recruitment. And then literally, Les Miles and John Chavis come to my high school. Literally the next day, I open up my commitment. And they come to my school. They talk to me. And my head coach like calls me out of class. Like, hey man, these coaches here. I want to talk to you. I'll go out there. I'm talking to Les Miles, and like all the kids, like, man, it's Les Miles walking in the hallway. And then they came to my house that night too. They're like, yeah, man, we really want you. We want you to come here. And then that's when I started getting. Then Tennessee started back talking. I had them on the table too as my
Uh-huh.
final two teams. Then Bush Jones came to my house too, and then what else happened? And then I finally decided that between Tennessee and LSU, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to LSU. So the day I committed to LSU, they played in that what's the Nashville Music City Bowl.
Yep.
It was LSU versus Notre Dame, and I think it was Leonard Fournette's sophomore year. It was his sophomore year there, and the day I committed, John Chavis leaves after that game, and like and literally the day after that night, his phone number changes, all that stuff. 48 hours later, he's at A&M. He's recruiting me at A&M. And at this time, I'm like, man, I can't go to LSU now because I don't know what coach is gonna be there. Back then they used to clean house. When one coach leave,
Everyone's
all
gone.
go, they're all gone.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I don't want to go to LSU no more because the dude who's recruiting me, he's gone now. He's leaving. So then I had my trainer reach out to schools like, hey, I got a 4-star DB. He's no longer going to LSU no more. But do y'all have any room for him? This is the Tennessee. Tennessee's like, oh man, we got to move on to the next class. North Carolina, nah, we got to move on to the next class. So there's only, and then he sent that same message to Michigan, and it was John Harbaugh's. Is it John or Jim? Which one is it at Michigan? Jim,
It's
John. It's John.
yeah, it's
It was
John.
John. So he sent it to his assistant. He's like, hey, I got this 4-star DB into your program. You want to give him an offer or a visit? He gets the text back like, hey, this isn't so and so, but I need DBs in this class. Send me his transcript. And that message went to Oregon and not to Michigan by mistake. So
Oh,
then I get on the phone with Oregon coaches. This is the time when they're about to get ready to play the Rose Bowl against Florida State. And then I sent them my transcript. Everything looked good. And Helfrich was the head coach at that time. Mark Helfrich was the head coach at that time. Everything looked good to them. And after that game, when they blew out Florida State, they offered me. I went there, signed unseen. And then this I enrolled early still in January. Still enrolled early. So I didn't even visit nowhere or anything. I didn't, man. And I remember with me and my parents, we went out there. It was like one of the longest trips I ever took across the country. I'm like, oh my God. I tell them, I was on that movies type stuff. Like, man, are we there
yeah.
yet? Are we there yet? So I ended up getting to Oregon, man. I was a little homesick though. I kept going back home any chance that I got. Like I was just home, so I was just so far away, and then I'm 2 hours behind, man. And just that was my first time being away from my family for that long.
Mm.
So it took till like after graduation. So when the season started, for that to go away, and then after that, I was good. I wasn't going back home if it went more than 2 weeks. That's just what it was.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Wow, that's wow, man. So the message went to Oregon instead of Michigan.
Instead
That
of Michigan. Mm-hmm.
wow. That is so crazy.
Because I told Brian Monet about that. I was like, man, I might have been at Michigan with you. He said, oh man, I was the dope you with Michigan. I would have probably went to Michigan. Who knows? I
Wow.
probably would have went to Michigan.
Wow.
So,
It's crazy kind of how fate or kind of how the stars align in certain directions and not others.
exactly.
But you still ended up kind of getting to the league. I'm curious, Ugo, you mentioned kind of the Nashville guys, who've been able to make it to the NFL, not really being known, and you and Jalen Ramsey and other guys trying to kind of make a name for Nashville ballers and coming back and giving back to the community here. Is that kind of a big sense of pride for you being, because it feels like with football, like all the guys are from like Texas or
Yeah.
California or, places like that. And here you have Nashville and you guys have a, few guys who've made it and done really well. Is that kind of a big sense of pride for you? Like, how do you carry that on your sleeve?
For me, how I carry that on my sleeve, the biggest thing for me is giving these kids hope. If they can see it, then I just want them to have the hope that, oh, I could be something. It doesn't have to be an athlete, but anything to where I could do whatever I'm doing and give back to the kids, because I remember the only NFL player that I met and like talked to was Jake Locker. Jake Locker, the one that the Titans drafted first one.
Yeah.
He came to my high school, came to my library. He came to the library. I never forget. He came to my library. We talked in the library, and he signed a picture, and then we took a picture. I don't know what the picture is now. That's the only person I ever witnessed, in close distance, and that was it. So now any chance that I get, I want to be in close distance with the kid. I don't want to just donate my money somewhere like, oh, Ugo Amadi donate. Like, no, I want you kids to be around me, see what it's like, like now you see it. Now you can have something that you can dream about, and aspire to be.
Yeah, showing your face is so important. And me growing up in Seattle, like the Seattle basketball guys, like Seattle is one of the best places for producing basketball talent in particular. And all the guys who made it like have come back and you see their face. And it's so important as a kid. Like it makes you feel like you can actually be like them. And so the fact that you and other guys from Nashville who've made it to the NFL are showing your faces, because that could really go a long way for the next generation, right? And so that's a really cool thing. Ugo, coming into the NFL, getting drafted by the Seahawks, with NFL guys, a lot of people kind of talk about like the vet who kind of showed them the way when they got in the door. For you being with the Seahawks, who was that vet for you, and kind of what example or what lessons did you take from them that has maybe kind of served you to this point?
I think I had two vets that kind of took me under their wing and, showed me the way. Or one would be Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright. Ironically, they're two linebackers, but yeah, I think with KJ, I never forget, was in the training room, and he was like more so like taking care of body. And I never forget, he got me to go with Dr. Bradley, who was the guy who does body work in Seattle. So I paid for your first session if you go or whatever. I went. Long story short, I ended up being with Dr. Bradley for 4 years, just off of
wow.
KJ lobbing me, hey man, this is the guy who take care of you throughout the whole season. And then with Bobby got me on like a different regimen. Like he had me up, he had me reading, he had me training differently, like just had me on a different, like game plan than everybody else. So when I made that big hit against Minnesota, and especially on special teams,
Yeah.
preseason game, after that play, Bobby comes up to me and says, see what happens when you show up to work early? Because he had me at work at 5 a.m. I'm at the facility at 5 a.m. And I was like, when I remember he told me that, I was like, Bobby, what you want me to do when I get to at 5 a.m.? He said, man, do something, work on your body, catch junction, do something. I was like, man, all right, I do it. I did it. And I just kept doing it every day. And it just became part of my routine. So like, I just, meetings don't start till about 8 o'clock. So imagine somebody being at work at 5 a.m. People still sleeping. Literally people are still sleeping. So it got to a point with me, and I'll tell Bobby, hey, Bobby, I beat you work this morning. He says, that's all right. I'm already 100 days ahead of you. He used to always say that every time. He right. I'm like, dang, he right. But everywhere I've been, I'm getting there at 5 a.m. That's just how I am. And I'm beating trainers. I'm beating everybody else who got to go to work, who don't got to do no strenuous jobs, just to be in the office. I'm beating it's still dark at the facility, So I think that really, that's showing me like I'm taking care of my body the night before to get up at 5 a.m. because you can't go to sleep at 12 o'clock and then be ready to be yourself at 5 a.m. So, and I just make sure then that ever since then reading books. I remember when Bobby told me to read one book, I really wasn't feeling it. And he got me another book. And after he got me that one book, man, I read like 10 books that year that
Mm.
he put me on reading books. And ever since then, like I got a whole library now of just books. I just read self-help, business books, all type of stuff.
Wow. What
Yeah.
does that maybe say about Bobby? Because like I know him pretty well, and he's just kind of a different kind of cat. Like he moves different. Like
Yeah.
he's very motivated, very disciplined. It kind of speaks to why he's so great on the football field, but also off the field, just with entrepreneurship and whatnot. Um, I guess just being up close with greatness like that, and him having kind of rubbed off on you a little bit. Um, I guess what can you say about uh, just having been up close with Bobby, kind of why he is what he is?
Well, I think what Bobby is just because with success, I'll put it simple as this: he can't be successful unless the next person is successful as well. So that's why he's so successful, because he gives back, he pays it back, and he's always wants the best interest for the next person to him, and he looks out for everybody. He's a good dude, good family man. Like you said, he moves definitely all about his business, never emotional. Like just like he's doing all his business without an agent. Can you imagine that? And
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, I'm gonna just represent myself. He took the time to do diligence to, learn what to say, what not to say. Like you got, I mean, it takes a different cat. Like, if a GM comes to you like, hey, we're only gonna give you about 8 million, and another player might take that just for 8 million, but Bobby's not gonna be like that. He's gonna be like, okay, all right, well, let's do these. How about these numbers? How does these numbers look to you? It's very professional.
Mhm.
There's a Bobby, a football Bobby, there's a business Bobby.
Facts. That's a good way to put it. For you, Ugo, again, kind of back with the Seahawks. I mean, Pete Carroll is one of the best coaches of all time. He's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. The energy he has for a guy his age is always kind of was always kind of mind boggling to me. What was your experience playing for a guy for the always compete Pete Carroll? What was that like?
Having Pete Carroll, yeah, there's no question. Pete Carroll's gonna be in the Hall of Fame, no question about that. I mean, Pete Carroll is this amazing coach. I mean, he did it in college, he's doing it in the NFL, and especially like you said, his age, he's still doing it. Me up close with him, like he made everybody play hard. Like everybody had a fight. Like that night before the game, he got people so motivated to just envision on the plays you're gonna make for the next day. Like literally, he got everybody going, and everybody's all juiced up, even when the odds may seem against you. Like everybody like, oh, I got this. Oh, I got this in the bag. And like just him, just still like having that young energy, and like getting and like even in team meetings will be so energetic. Like he had all the coaches like, hey, clap him up, da, da, da. And he'll put all the good plays on film, what you do in practice, so the teammates next to you know what type of teammate you have. Like look what your teammate next to you is doing. Like look what he's doing. Let's see what you can do. And that competition is everything. That iron sharpens iron, man. I used to love practice because practice get the man. It was so cliche, but practice is everything. Like what you do in
Yeah,
practice will show up in the game.
for sure.
Yeah.
And Ugo, last season for you was kind of like a roller coaster, right? Like I remember like the 9-day span last year where the Seahawks traded you to the Eagles, and then the Eagles traded you to the Titans, your hometown team. Man, what were the emotions of all that? Like, just kind of what was going through your head? How did you deal with that?
Man, I had to drink some water before we get into that one, man. I had to drink some water. But nah, it was definitely like a roller. It was a roller coaster. I get traded to the Eagles. I get to the Eagles. I'll never forget. We're having a joint practice with the Dolphins, and it was hot out there. I'm talking about it was scorching hot. And right after practice, the GM and the head coach pulled me to the side, and it was like, "We just traded you to the Titans." And I was like, "Are you for real?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I thought you'd be happy." This is Howie. He's saying, "I thought you'd be happy." I just got here. That's what I told him.
Yeah.
I just got here.
Kind of a
Literally,
weird question to ask you.
yeah. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I just got here. He's like, yeah, man, but I knew it was for home for you, so we just wanted to pull the trigger on it. I'm like, all right, okay, cool. So literally that same day, they fly me to Nashville. And I almost hesitated. Like I almost like wanted to call my mom, hey, come pick me up from the airport, but it wasn't that type of, coming back home type of thing. I was like, hey, come pick me up from the airport. But it's like, oh, you got a ride and everything? Like, yeah, I got a ride. I go to the facility, I meet the head coach and the GM, and we talk whatever. And then the next day I'm in the building with them. You know, that week we playing preseason against the Cardinals. I made my plays preseason. We got to get ready for week one. Who do we had? We had the Giants, and then we played week 2 against the Bills. I get a high ankle sprain in that game, so I'm out for about 4 games. And then eventually after that, I end up getting released. And then a day went by. There's like a few teams calling me, but my agent didn't tell me what the teams were. He's like, I'm not really. Those teams aren't moving the needle for me. And then he calls me the next day. I'll never forget. I'm watching. I was watching Friday. I'm watching the movie, and I fall asleep watching the movie. And I just look at my phone, like all these text messages. My agent's like, "Hey, answer the phone, answer the phone, answer the phone." I call him. I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "Hey, I got this team that wants to sign you." I'm like, "Who?" He said, "The Chiefs, man." So they need a vet in the building with the DBs because like they had drafted 5 young DBs, so they need a vet, to be around the DBs. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And I get on the phone with the GM. He's like, yeah, man, we're talking. And he puts me on the phone with the DB coach, OBC. And they said, well, yeah, we got to head out to practice, but we'll chat, once I get out. And then he said, let me know later on the day what you have going. Cause I had other teams on the table, but I was like, nah. And then later on that day, I was like, all right, let's just do the Chiefs. And then I get to the Chiefs, and then that's just history.
But Ugo, kind of going through all that, right? Like you have a home in Seattle and then they kind of ship you off and then you're
Yeah.
just getting on the ground in Philly and they tell you you're going home to Tennessee and then it doesn't work out with Tennessee and then you go to Kansas City. Throughout that season, what did you maybe learn about yourself, like kind of going through all that, like feeling like you're not wanted, but you're wanted because you have value, right? Because a team is willing to trade for you, but then the team that traded for you doesn't ships you out or they cut you after some time. Like, what did you maybe learn about yourself going through all that last season?
Yeah, Ben, that's a great question to ask. I think what I learned about myself is no matter the situation, circumstances, that it doesn't change who you are and what you do. Like again, when I told you I was waking up at 5 a.m. to get my body worked on, all that stuff, like I did that with every team. No matter, I could have easily be like, all right, I got released. All right, let me just coast the rest of the season and call it for what it is. Nah, I didn't let none of that change me or waver me. It still kept me mentally sharp, and it just goes to show that none of this stuff is really real. Like you can really say like, oh nah, man, like I'm not wanted or anything like that. That would really that will make you lose your confidence. And I stayed confident throughout that whole time. As hard as it could be being traded, like who's all been traded 2-3 times in 1 year,
Yeah,
been on a different team for each preseason game, like being
yeah,
traded, like, and some people that take a toll on them. And usually how that goes is when people get traded like that, then they'll eventually wind off out of the NFL. Literally, that's just how it goes. But I stayed the course. I knew what type of talent I bring and what type of value I bring to a team. And now I'm with the New Orleans Saints. Now they want to see what I bring with them as well. So it's just all just trusting what God has for you, man. That's the biggest thing. Because anybody else would have wavered out like, man, I'm done playing football, man. I just keep getting bounced around and all that stuff. But look at that. Look at me being traded all these other times. I could have easily just been like with the Titans. I was like, nah, I'm done. I'm done. But then I ended up getting a Super Bowl ring out of it. Can you imagine that? If
yeah.
God would have
That's
told me
true.
like, "Hey, Ugo, you win the Super Bowl this year," I'm be like, "What? We won the Super Bowl?" And he ain't gonna tell me like how it's gonna happen. Like, "Hey, Ugo, you gonna win the Super Bowl this year?" I'm like, "Wow!" And I'm like, "Dang, like how that's gonna happen?" Then, look at me, get traded, all that. I would have never imagined I was gonna win the Super Bowl, getting traded and cut all do all that. Man. What?
Yeah, it's crazy how things work out and just trusting the process and the faith and the belief you had in yourself throughout that was really really good to hear. We're kind of winding down here, Ugo. I have a couple more questions for you. You mentioned the Saints and you signed with them in free agency, obviously. What are you hoping that you can show them? Like, what do you believe that you bring to the table to the Saints that's of value?
I think what I bring to the Saints is just that Swiss Army knife. I'm gonna be able to do it all off on special teams, defense, playing multiple positions. Leadership. Most importantly, being causing havoc on the defense as well, blitzing off the edge, setting the perimeter game, like killing all that stuff. And that's what they want to see out of me.
Yeah, I like the defense that you guys have in New Orleans. I feel like nationally people are kind of sleeping on the Saints. They don't really know what to expect, but I know at least defensively, you guys have some dogs. Like you have Lattimore and Demario Davis, and Cam Jordan is still around. So excited to kind of see how you kind of add and kind of boost that unit. And kind of last question for you, Ugo. And again, thanks for your time. This has been great. But your top 5 DBs in the NFL right now. So this is corners, safeties, nickel guys, like top 5. And it doesn't have to necessarily be in order, but just who you think, like who the real top dogs at the in the secondary are.
As of right now, the top
as
DBs,
of right
now, top DBs.
Yeah, now.
Top DBs right now. I get to my dog Quandre Diggs.
Okay.
Who else? Jalen Ramsey, he's top 5. Kenny Moore with the Colts.
Oh, wow. I did not expect that one.
Kenny Moore.
Okay.
See, 4 and 5 are always hard. I'm trying to think. Oh man, this is tough. Oh man. I'm trying to think. There's so many. Man, I'll say Jared Alexander.
Okay.
Jared Alexander.
Yeah.
I gotta get another safety in there. Another safety.
Man, there are a lot of.
Minka.
There's Minka. There's KB. Derwin James. There's a lot of guys. Jesse Bates.
I have to go with KB.
Okay.
Quandre Diggs and KB, I witnessed that with my own eyes. I'll go with those two as my safeties. Quandre Diggs and KB, both gonna get the ball, and their range is out this world.
Okay, and I want to kind of touch on your Kenny Moore choice, because I think he's a great player. But I think kind of the layman fan wouldn't necessarily put him like in the top 5.
He's in my top 5 because he plays slot.
So okay.
He's my top slot guy, so I had to put a
Got
slot.
it.
They don't got no slot options.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
So I gotta throw him in there.
That's fair. Okay, that makes sense. Okay,
yeah.
I love it, man. Well, Ugo, thank you so much for joining the show. Guys, appreciate you guys tuning in, as always, for rocking with me, for supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Raw Facts podcast on YouTube, and please follow the show on Instagram and Twitter. Ugo Amadi, defensive back with the New Orleans Saints. Thank you so much for your time, and best of luck this season.
Yes, sir, man. I appreciate you, man. Have a good one.
Yep. Appreciate you guys.
Easy.